Hello there and welcome back to our round 11. I am joined here again by the wonderful Freya. The first time we are seeing her today. How are you finding your day so far?
It's been pretty darn fun, not going to lie. Just had a very lovely conversation with Chandler Gregory, one of our esteemed Pokemon professors. I get to talk about some of their experiences, being part of the professor program, and it's really nice to get a slightly different perspective on how you might, what the things you might think about when a whole tournament is running.
Any inside info? Any secrets?
Nothing quite like that, I think it's safe to say. It's more just, the obvious about how, these events take a lot of people to run. There's always a lot going on, and that every little hand helps, and just talking about some of their positive experiences during their course of being part of the professor program.
That's great. We love our professors, all of them. Volunteers as well, all of them running leagues at home, bringing us all in. I started playing locally first and obviously ended up coming to these big events, and it's my local professor, my local judges that obviously got me to stick around, and yeah, it's really great how much they bring to the community. Really nice vibe, and they're always so friendly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always so friendly. So we are now going into our round 11. You may recognize the face somewhat on stream. It's not, in fact, Owen Kamerman, though. His brother, Brennan Kamerman, both of them in Day 2 of this tournament, a really good showing from them. And of course against Francesco, Lost Zone Box against Palkia. Yeah. A really hot matchup here.
Yeah, Brennan, a fantastic player. Owen, also a fantastic player. In fact, such a fantastic player that I do believe Owen is currently number one.
Number one.
On the rankings for the European Championship points. I think his
brother's got something to prove here now. Owen's number one already. I feel like Brennan now has got to do well this game. Maybe take the rest of the tournament down as well. Really show his brother that he's got someone on his heels.
Yes, absolutely. And Francesco as well, going to be looking to show off what he can do as well. And I mean, if you made it to day 2, if you make it to day 2 at a regionals like this, you already know you're in the upper echelons of players, right? It is not every single player that can make it this far into a tournament. So both of these players, they've already proven they have something to prove in a sense, but now they're looking to make it that extra step further and seal their spot in the top 8.
Yeah, definitely. And you might also recognize Brennan from his 2nd place finish at Liverpool, our first European event back after the COVID pandemic. So a really good showing at the end of last season, and let's see if we continue that run today. We're looking at his prizes now really quickly. Comfey in there, I think that's a Drapion V. He's going to be happy that's in there versus Palkia. Not much use here. And of course, Francesco, just the path to the peak and 2 Capacious Bucket in there could prove awkward. Also 2 water energy as well, so there's energy going to be a little bit difficult for him to access this game. But we start off with a flower selecting and the boss's orders Lysander hitting the Lost Zone.
Yeah, boss's orders gone. I'm not quite sure how many Brennan plays. It looks like there's a count of only 1 in the deck actually. So bit awkward to lose that so early, but sometimes those are decisions you have to make when it comes to using Comfey's ability. Meanwhile, a quick ball game played and another Comfey hitting the bench, but Brennan taking a quick look just to see what is in the prize cards. A very important thing to do when you're in these, especially these, higher stakes games.
Higher stakes games, and I think one of the really cool things about this deck that we can talk about while he's searching, that fire energy hitting the discard. Radiant Charizard being one of the big attackers in this deck. Now people would think, why would he want the fire energy in the discard so early then? But with Clara, it is almost the safest place for it to be, because when that Charizard is able to hit, you can Clara both the Charizard and the fire energy out at the same time and swing for that massive 250 base damage.
Yeah, it's almost like putting a fire energy in the bank, right? It's like, you know exactly where it is, and you have the withdrawal coupon in the form of the Clara to take it out when you need it at the right time, which is usually later on in the game anyway.
Yes, definitely. And we see the escape rope here. Sobble not able to go anywhere, just these Comfey switching for another flower selecting. That one-off Pokegear now hitting the discard, the Lost Zone as well. And a pass. Not a strong turn there from Brennan. A nice start with 2 in the Lost Zone. You would have wanted a bit more. Obviously, one of those Comfey's prize, not able to hit that, but maybe some other basic attackers hitting the board as well. And it is just an attach to the Sobble and a keep calling. Very similar first turns than it looks for both our players.
Very much so, yes. I'm sure Francesco would have liked a little bit more than just that, but of course keep calling is always a solid option to start off your game with. Just being able to get out all the Sobbles in one go and really get that in Inteleon and Drizzle Shady Dealings chain going well. Yeah,
we saw a number of times yesterday those Palkia decks utilizing that Inteleon. We know that Freya, you casted a match where one of our players decided not to bench his Sobbles against Sableye, trying to sort of help his deck run without the easy snipe from those 12 damage counters. I think Francesco here maybe opting to put down a few Sobble. He's got to be really careful because otherwise he can fall into that trap.
Yes, he could, especially considering, I mean, to be fair, Brennan's turn 1 was not crazy fast, so there was only 2 in the lost zone, so no Chorus's experiment, obviously, because Brennan went first, so maybe it might not be too bad. Also, interestingly enough here, I just noticed that was a capture energy that was actually attached by Francesco, so not quite going for the keep calling yet, actually using the capture energy to grab a Radiant Greninja from the deck.
Right, of course, yes, I did not notice that. Apologies, everyone, that was completely incorrect for me. So he has got much more to go this turn, and that Irida is going to be a good place to start.
Yes.
Going into your deck and grabbing a water Pokemon and an item card, definitely something you want to see on your first turn.
Yeah, so this is going to be a really, really solid start from Francesco, actually. Not going from, oh, actually, it's just going to be, you know, 4 Sobbles to, no, it's going to be the full board of everything I need to get my deck set up.
Yeah, and it looks like eyeing up the Palkia and the Bucket. So 2 prize, 1 still in deck, still able to get those water energy. He's off to a good start. He's got to keep an eye, though. It didn't look like he did a huge check there to double check how many water energy in there. Maybe aware that a few are in the prizes. He's just got to be careful how he manages those. Maybe not go too hard on the Greninja early in the game, getting rid of a lot of them. He's got to save a few to attach to his Palkia.
Yeah, and I think he is aware of that because that first search from the capture energy, he did look quite a bit more thoroughly just to make sure that he knew everything was there. So I'm sure he will bear that in mind. Of course, you still want to get those water energies in the discard pile because you want to be able to fuel that star portal for the maximum free energy as soon as you can.
Of course, and here it is, that concealed cards, drawing 2 more cards. We've definitely had an improved turn from a keep calling for a couple of Sobble now. Really, really starting to establish this board. 2 Palkia V coming down. We've mentioned so many times this weekend how important it can be to get 2 attackers down just for a little bit of reassurance that you're going to be able to attack with something during the game. And I think those 2 Palkia, a choice belt coming down, not really overly relevant in this matchup. Obviously, a lot of 1 prize attackers in the deck. I think no 2 prize attackers whatsoever.
No, so literally.
Oh, just the Drapion V, but I don't imagine that's coming down. So not really relevant in this matchup for anything. But of course, now the keep calling finally coming off and 2 Sobble hitting the bench.
Actually, you say not relevant. Sobble is a Rapid Strike Pokemon.
Ah, yes, it is.
There could be some potential shenanigans for a quick early damage with Drapion V in this particular scenario, actually. I don't know if it's something that Brennan will go for, but it is actually an option here.
It is actually an option. You are correct. Never think. You just think about Mew, don't you? You literally just think it is for Mew and Mew only. And so the Chorus experiment, a great way to start off your second turn. Obviously, no supporters able to be played on your first turn. So now Brennan starts off it in the best way possible. Already getting rid of the Cape of Toughness and a Psychic Energy, hitting the lost zone, and 3 cards to hand. Pokestop, Echoing Horn, and a Sableye.
Yeah, Psychic Energy, of course, making sense to be the one to get rid of. There's already one in the hand. It is the basic energy you play the highest count of, so you can usually afford to lost zone 1, maybe even 2 over the course of the game, and that's exactly what Brennan has done there. Going to play that Pokestop as well. You're going to fire off the effect straight away, discarding the top 3 cards of their deck, and then any items found go to the hand.
Psychic Energy hitting the bin, and something I didn't quite see.
It was a Clara, I believe.
Oh, a Clara. There we go. Oh, he's not going to be happy about
that
Clara. Obviously,
definitely not.
Does play Pelpad, I believe. Yeah, 1 Pelpad, so he is going to have access to that again. Obviously playing 2 Clara anyway, so not the end of the world, but of course, really important card in this deck.
Yeah, so scoop up net to pick up the Comfort that just used the Flower Selecting. Very fortunate there to hit a Battle VIP pass. Easy card to Lost Zone there. Another Flower Selecting now as the Sableye hits the Lost Zone, and the Cramorant goes to hand. Makes a lot of sense. Kamerman is the attacker you want to use more earlier on because, of course, you can use it with less cards in the Lost Zone. Brennan already meeting the requirement of 4, having 6 in the Lost Zone already.
Yeah, of course, that brilliant Lost Provisions ability, meaning that if you have 4 or more cards in the Lost Zone, spit innocently, a 3 energy cost attack becomes free for a whole 110 damage on a basic Pokemon.
Yeah, which is honestly pretty insane, especially on a single prizer as well, doing 110 for no energy. There's a reason why Kamerman is one of the main attackers in this Lost Zone box deck alongside Sableye.
Yeah, definitely a brilliant addition. And of course, it's going to be able to pick up a knockout on any Sobble in the active as well.
It will.
That 110 being able to get him 1 prize ahead. That Charizard hitting the bench, ready to be utilized at some point during this game. The Psychic attach, and we're going to see the Cramorant fire off an attack at some point and end this turn.
Yeah, so no Drapion shenanigans this time, it would seem, as hilarious as that would be. Instead, just maybe doing the more sensible play and just going ahead and attacking with the Cramorant. You don't really want to be giving up your advantage of being a 1 prize deck by putting it down to 2 prizer against a Palkia.
No, definitely not. We want to keep the 1 prizes. The great thing about these 1 prize decks, for those of you who don't know, have to take 6 prizes, and it's not so much the case of these 1 prizes being really powerful. It's just sometimes these 2 or 3 prize decks don't have the resources to do that many attacks and go through 6 things.
Yeah.
For example, Giratina being a great example, needing to Lost Zone 2 energy every time it fires off Lost Impact, getting through 6 Pokemon with no other attack, it can be really difficult.
Yeah, exactly, because usually in a lot of games with the amount of 2 and 3 prize Pokemon, 6 prizes taken doesn't necessarily mean 6 knockouts taken. But against a single prize deck like Lost Zone Box, you have to take 6 physical knockouts to win the game, and that just puts so much more strain on these decks that burn through a lot of resources to take their KOs to actually be able to last that long, exactly like you said.
Definitely, and the Palkia V-Star coming down, and the Drizzile. We love seeing it so much. It has been one of the most played cards of probably the last 6 months, almost a year now, being able to use that Shady Dealings, go into the deck and find a trainer card of your choice.
Yes, it's one of the most consistent and solid engines of the entire game, so much so that at one point people were even playing that, of course, Jolteon with the ability that shuts off the abilities of water Pokemon simply to stop this Inteleon engine. Not seeing it as much play nowadays, but even so, that just goes to show just how impactful this engine has been.
Yeah, the Inteleon line absolutely running riot in our formats the last couple of months, and Francesco choosing to utilize it here again. A lot of people talking about that Palkia maybe not one of the better decks once all of these new attackers come out, you know, your Gudras, your Giratinas, but it's proving its worth here again. Already a few in day 2, and it might go even further. And it looks like Francesco chooses to get that cross switcher.
Yes, so, and actually, is that a Raihan that was played just now, looks like?
Raihan. That's really cool. Raihan usually seen a lot later in the game to utilize sort of a comeback mechanic here, but Francesco going for, it looks like that Greninja combo here, being able to attach an energy with that Raihan to the Greninja, that 90-90 snipe, really big.
Yes, and especially in this situation, given that, I don't know if it's possible for Francesco to access a cross switcher. Oh, yes, okay, there we go, exactly like with
Raihan, grab any card you want from your deck after attaching that energy, pretty good.
So now, not only can we see a 90-90, but we can bring up the Charizard to the active, and it can be 180-90 and actually take a double knockout.
Of course, 180-90. Greninja being able to hit the active for weakness, not the bench.
No.
Only the active, so it's really important that that cross switcher brings the Charizard into the active. But of course, that's going to be a really big turn for Francesco. As we said, typically speaking, these decks have got to take 6 physical knockouts, and if you can have some cheeky turns when you get to take more than one, you're definitely going to want to utilize them.
Yeah, it is the way that these decks can sort of almost counteract the single prize defense factor. And yeah, there it is, double cross switcher, bringing up that Radiant Charizard and the Radiant Greninja. Francesco's, I imagine, going to go for, go for a Crobat just before going for the Star Portal, and then attaching all the energy to the Greninja. Maybe one on the Palkia as well. It could depend on, Capture Energy will be coming in.
No attach yet for turn Capture Energy. Not able to get a Pokemon out of the deck thus far, though. Obviously, the bench is full.
Yes.
And of course, now that Star Portal being utilized. Choosing to attach all of it to the Greninja. Greninja, really important point about Moonlight Shuriken is that you have to discard 2 energy from Greninja after using the attack. So obviously by attaching extra energy, he only needs 1 more energy next turn to be able to use that again.
Yeah, and obviously the big stinger there for Brennan is that Brennan wasn't able to get out a copy of Manaphy. Of course, there are 2 in his list, and is exactly in there because this deck is so vulnerable to things like sniping from Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken, and right now Brennan's just after a Kamerman.
Yeah, that Manaphy proving its worth. I think Tord playing the 2 at Peoria really set the pace and showed how much this deck relies on it. Usually just a one-off in decks, but as you said, so susceptible to it. You have to make sure you don't get Greninja sniped, and of course, that's already gone wrong for Brennan this game. Francesco really taking advantage of that, and he's going to hope now that he's able to utilize it again. You'd imagine this quick ball is going to get some sort of defense in the form of Manaphy.
You'd have to think so.
Brennan also needs to be looking at what attackers he can utilize now. This Kamerman not able to knock out the Greninja in the active.
No, it's true. Although perhaps Brennan might think, okay, I can't use the Kamerman to KO the active, but I can do enough damage to it to then set up a follow-up KO with Lost Mine later on.
Yeah, with Lost Mine later on, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, this Manaphy hitting the bench. Brennan seeing the importance of that. He did not like the way that felt last turn.
Nope.
2 prizes gone already. So that quick ball for the Manaphy. You're going to shore that up, protecting all of your bench Pokemon from damage.
Yes, and Brennan does have the escape rope ready in hand to switch to the Comfey as well to start getting some more flower selectings going. Does have another quick ball as well. Did hit 2 off of the Pokestop, so could go for another quick ball, but opted to play the escape rope first. Perhaps thinking going for the first flower selecting is a better idea before choosing what to get off the second quick ball.
Of course, we discussed this a couple of times yesterday. Sequencing, if he's able to see what he wants to see off of this flower selecting, it means he doesn't have to use one of his quick ball resources, and he can use that perhaps for something else later on in the game.
Yeah, very much so. And it looks like the choice there from the last lap thing is Switch Car or Cramorant. And given that there's one Cramorant already out, the second one is going to get a little bit lost, unfortunately.
A little bit lost indeed. And I think the switch card here, really important. I think that Brennan now really has to try and push towards that 10. That Sableye is going to become really important quite quickly. He's behind on prizes now already. Obviously, these one prize decks able to sort of claw their way back into the game quite quickly. This Clara grabbing the Comfey. That switch card probably going to be utilized to get more things in the lost zone. Up to 8 then, and then just 2 more needed to get up to that lost mine.
Yes, so look, the Clara able to get the Radiant Charizard back. Switch card now going to be played. Looks like Brennan just going to go straight for the Cramorant, and now going to be after benching another Comfey, and I imagine maybe being a little bit more wary about benching the Radiant Charizard straight away. Probably going to be going for another attack with the Cramorant first. There's bench to Sableye 2, as a matter of fact. But I think just trying to prepare his bench for the following turns.
Yeah, I think that it's important to note now, you said a little bit wary of benching the Charizard again. Of course, that Clara we saw hit the discard early, and of course, another one being played now. So the Pelpad now needed to be able to use Clara again. He only plays the 2 off of the card. So in order to get that Charizard back, if it's knocked out again, he would need to find Pelpad first. So, of course, being a little bit more wary now is important. That Charizard is going to prove really important later in the game. Being able to take those big 2-prize knockouts with a choice band on those Palkia, and, of course, easy prizes on that Crobat sitting on the bench.
Yeah, he had to play the Clara that turn to get all that back now. But like you said, it's going to be important for him to be able to do so later on to sort of take those last 2 prizes to close out the game. And so that Palpad is going to be vital to find to make sure that the third Clara can happen.
Into Palkia sends it over to Francesco, and he drops the Inteleon. That Shady Dealings. This time, though, 2 trainer cards of his choice. Looking for that Melanie and the Scoop Up Net. That Scoop Up Net, really cool. Once you get to that Inteleon, you almost want to reset, get that Sobble back down, pick it all the way up, put it all the way back down, you're able to utilize it again. We also see a Drizzle right next to that Inteleon, meaning you could use the Inteleon straight away again on top of that Drizzle. But the Melanie, the main part here, that Palkia needs to fire off an attack with that Subsway spell this turn. So the Melanie getting an energy from the discard, attaching it to a Pokemon, and then, of course, just 1 more energy needed, and there it is.
Yeah, just before the attack gets fired off, Francesco is going to take a quick look at Brennan's discard pile. Of course, it's very important to keep track of your opponent's resources, especially in a matchup like this, just to know what they've been through and what they have access to and what they don't. Francesco also probably considering whether it's worth playing the Scoop Up Net this turn specifically, just to, like you said, reset that chain of Inteleons. There is a Drizzle and an Inteleon currently sitting pretty on the bench, and he's just really thinking this over just to make sure what the right line is to take here.
We mentioned at the start of the game that Sableye really able to punish those Sobbles being on the bench with that Lost Mine. Obviously, Francesco opting here, it looks for all 60 HP ones. So it does mean Sableye would be able to take 2 of those at a time if they're sitting around doing nothing. So obviously, instead of putting that Inteleon back on that Drizzle, he's gone for the quick shooting Inteleon here. Try and get some damage onto Brennan's side of the board. You'd imagine maybe trying to pick off that Manaphy at some point throughout the game to get another Greninja attack off. But it's really important to play those Scoop Up Nets now at the right time, or even if you play it at all now, he doesn't want to make himself susceptible to a multiple prize turn from Sableye.
No, that's exactly it. Francesco, in a sense, has already escaped the danger zone, right? There was a point early on where we were saying, oh, there could be a risk of a Sableye double knockout on these Sobbles, but Francesco was able to escape that and get these Sobbles evolved into Inteleons. And so unless he thinks he really, really needs some kind of reset to do some more digging for trainers in his deck, he's probably going to leave the Inteleons as they are right now. Yeah,
and I think that is a great point and a great thing he's going to be taking forward with him in this game. It'll be interesting to see how that develops. This Palkia took a knockout last turn, and Brennan starts his turn with a Pokestop. That Colress hitting the discard, probably not the thing he wanted to see hit the discard, and an Escape Rope and a Cape hitting his hand, and now a Flower selecting Marnie and Comfey. The choices available. Not sure if Brennan has a supporter in his turn, in his hand for this turn. However, it's quite a large hand, so maybe Marnie not the correct thing to do at the minute. And of course, he chooses to go for that Comfey, trying to get up to that 10. That Sableye can't actually even attack until it has 10 cards in the Lost Zone. So that Lost Mine not available to him yet. He's going to need 2 more cards in there.
Yeah, so Scoop Up Net picking up the one Comfey so that the other one could come into play. And oh my goodness, when you look at that.
It's me and Ross last game we were describing, we said on the first turn, VIP Pass is the perfect card to hit, but any other time it's garbage. And I said, not true. If you see a Flower selecting, it's the perfect card to see the card you want. And so we agreed, perfect garbage is what we are now calling VIP Pass.
Perfect garbage. What a way to put it. And yeah, although in that instance Brennan did hit 2, he can still use the other one as discard fodder for a quick ball maybe. So it really isn't the end of the world. And one hitting the lost zone is absolutely where Brennan would most like those battle VIP passes to be right now.
And of course, because the Comfey was scooped up earlier, it's able to use its ability again, resetting the card, the Echoing Horn hitting the discard, and Manaphy coming to hand again. This is actually really big for Brennan. You can see now that Francesco was targeting down that Manaphy with those quick shootings, hoping at some point in the game he's going to be able to get a breakthrough, KO that Manaphy, and obviously attack with the Greninja again. But seeing that second Manaphy in hand means that that can be played straight back down at a particular turn when he thinks one of his Manaphies are going to go down, and of course he's never going to be susceptible to that again. Yeah,
that's so important. It's not often that you see that because, of course, like we were discussing earlier, so many of the decks that played Manaphy in the past only really played one copy, but because of how vital it is to make sure that you don't get double sniped from various different attacks, and this deck is full of less than 90 HP single prize Pokemon, it becomes so important to play multiples, and here we can see why it's so important, because now there's a backup when that first Manaphy goes down.
Yeah, definitely, and I think here the escape rope, big, getting Brennan over that 10 now, so we are now in the zone of the Lost Mine. And so that Sableye now able to attach and do 12 damage counters anywhere on Francesco's board in any which way he likes. He can put 1 on each. He can put 2 on each. He can put 5 on one, 4 on another, any way he likes. And obviously that can set up some really cool combinations later in the game. And now we see the Charizard hit the board again, but this time with a Tape of Toughness. Tape of Toughness.
I'm fairly sure Ross made the same mix-up once at some point. Yes, the Tape of Toughness is now on the Charizard, and that should hopefully make you feel a little bit more safe from any kind of KO shenanigans. But actually Brennan going to be following up now with a Roxanne.
A Roxanne. It seems very early in the game sort of to be able to play Roxanne, but of course Francesco off to a flying start with a double knockout early, so it means he's able to set him down to 2 cards. And I think this is really cool here because, as we said, Francesco's Inteleon's already out. Another Inteleon quick shooting. He's got no Drizzile drops, meaning he's going to have to hit exactly what he wants off of this. We already see 1 energy in the discard bucket. There's going to be no real easy access to energy here. Quite a lot still on the board as well. His hand could get a bit jammed here.
Yeah, and this is the trade-off, right? Because, of course, yes, you don't want to risk yourself being vulnerable to another Lost Mine by playing Scoop Up Net to pick up a Inteleon, but at the same time, if you don't have the means to evolve into the Drizzles and Inteleons because it's already fully evolved, you can't search for trainers. So it's a little bit it's a struggle if you do and a struggle if you don't.
Exactly, and that Pel Pad that we were talking about finally hitting the board. I think Clara is definitely going to be the choice here.
Both of them,
Both of them being the choice. Perhaps maybe eyeing up the Roxanne again, but I think definitely one Clara will at least hit the deck here. Brennan needing to utilize that Radiant Zard at some point in the late game, and he opts for both. I think going back to that Inteleon as well, it's been talked about for months. One of the downsides of the Inteleon engine is these things, these Roxannes. It can be quite susceptible, only being able to handpick instead of drawing up after them. So I'll have to see how that affects Francesco going into the later game.
Yeah, and there was one interesting thing there noted. Brennan did not need to use the last selecting. There's currently 11 in the Lost Zone, not 10.
Yeah, there is.
But Brennan switched into that Comfey with an escape rope. So Brennan could have switched into the Sableye instead, actually done the first attack, but it specifically decided not to. And I'm wondering what the thought process was behind that.
I think maybe if he was searching for something else, I don't know, I could be wrong, but maybe it was the Psychic Energy in his hand, or did he have the right things to be able to activate the Sableye? Looking at his hand now, you'd imagine if he had it, he would play it straight away to switch out there.
Well, it's currently Francesco's turn.
Francesco's turn.
Yeah, Brennan had to pass because no switch card hit from that Roxanne, unfortunately.
And he does finally scoop up that Inteleon back to hand. That Sobble coming down now, and it's not at the right time. That Sableye is going to be able to utilize that knockout quite easily on Brennan's next turn. And of course, Francesco not with the knowledge that a second Manaphy in hand, continuing to prod that Manaphy on the bench. Now up to 40 damage. He's going to continue to cause it problems, but little does he know, Brennan has a backup.
Yeah, Brennan does have a backup, although I'm not sure if Brennan redrew the Manaphy off the Roxanne, because of course it was in the hand before the Roxanne. In fact, no, it doesn't look like he did. I don't see it there.
And coming back over the Clara now, going back into that discard. We keep talking about how important it is, getting that fire energy to activate that Charizard. 2 Pokemon, the Kamerman and the Comfey, back into hand.
Yes, and now, of course, with 4 prizes taken on Francesco's side, that Radiant Charizard is fully live to attack with just 1 energy as well.
Live is ready to happen, and here it comes. I think that, no, the Sableye coming in first, being able to do that lost bind. He knows, Brennan, that he's definitely going to be able to pick up that Sobble knockout if he wants it, taking him down to 4 prizes, and it'll be interesting to see where else the damage counters go. The Fire Energy hitting the Zard, ready to go as well.
And after that, it's just going to be a lost mine, yep, carrying the Sobble and putting what looks to be the rest of the damage somewhere else. Got to consider this very, very carefully. I think 30 damage has to go on the other Palkia. That way you can do 250 with the Radiant Charge. Yes. That's KO it. But it looks like, actually putting it on the Drapion. Was that Drapion? No.
Crobat. 6 on the Crobat as well. Not bad either. The Crobat obviously only having a low HP count of 170. So, of course, 6 plus another 12 from Sableye at some point in the game will be able to KO the Crobat. These are the drawbacks again. We're talking about drawbacks. Crobat, a really powerful ability, being able to draw up to 6 cards in your hand when you play it from your hand. However, low HP, 2 prizes when it gets KO'd.
Yes, it is the risk reward of playing Crobat. It is such a strong card, and there are many games that you would lose without it because you had no way to draw cards anyway. So most of the time it's worth it, but that is a risk you have to accept. And actually, it looks like Brennan is just conceding the game, not able to find any way out. I believe that was a concession from Brennan.
I think that it's the concession from Brennan. I think he's looking at Francesco's side of the board and he's seeing, right, he only needs 2 more prizes. I know that if he takes a prize this turn, he goes down to 1 prize, and then I know that I have 4 prizes left to take. So even if I'm able to take a huge knockout with either Sableye or Charizard this turn, all that Francesco needs to do is hit me the following turn with any of his attackers, and he wins. That's the one thing with this Lost Box deck. There's not really anything with a high HP cap to be able to sort of hide behind or maybe protect some of your smaller attackers with. All of them quite susceptible to any of these V or V-Star Pokemon. Their attacks are usually doing anywhere from sort of 160 up to maybe 280 damage.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably some of the whole reasoning as well behind playing something like Cape of Toughness, because it means that your Radiant Charizard can, tank not all the hits, but if it goes from 160 to 210, it's not bad, but that can still not withstand the Palkia given that you get hit for weakness.
Exactly that. And weakness playing a huge part in that game. Freya, what do you think? So the Greninja play there, bringing up the Charizard, hitting it for weakness, taking the combo. Do you think that was the key decision in this game?
I think it was, yeah. I think that it was the moment where, not only the key decision, but sort of recognizing that was something to capitalize on, and being able to find all the pieces with the cross switches and everything to do that turn. That was like we said before, when you're up against single prize decks, because you have to take 6 individual knockouts, if you can take multiple knockouts in one turn, that is the way you get the tempo back in your favor. And by doing that play, Francesco did exactly that.
Yeah, really well played there by Francesco. Did all the right things, those Inteleons staying out at the correct time, going back for the Sobble when he realized his hand was a little bit short from that Roxanne there as well. Willing to take the risk from the Sableye being able to KO it. However, I think very well played. He made all the right decisions, and of course, we said being able to capitalize. Obviously knows how to play this matchup. It was a winning deck, a regional winning deck a couple of weeks ago now in Peoria. I think everyone after that really wanted to learn the matchup inside out, and it looks like Francesco, he has done his homework.
Yeah, Francesco has very, very much done his homework, and he's going to be absolutely chuffed to be 1 game up already in the series. There isn't a lot of time left on the clock, considering it's only been 1 game. So I think that Francesco will be very much looking to win this game too, to seal out the match. Otherwise, it probably will end in a tie. But of course, he's done it once, and he can do it again.
He definitely can. Now let's look over at Brennan. Both players getting a basic Pokemon. So the prizes on Brennan's side, the Raihan in there this time, the Echoing Horn and the Pokestop. We saw him utilize Pokestop quite a lot last game. So will that become a big factor? Who knows? And then on Francesco's side, 1 Palkia V, a Capture Energy, a Scoop Up Net. Just one-offs for certain things. Obviously less energy in there than last time. So I think he'll be happy with those prizes.
Yeah, and from the start, selecting a Switch card going into the Lost Zone. The other card being a Clara, which I think Brennan would very much not like to hit the Lost Zone. It plays a lot less copies of Clara than he does a Switch card.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked just now about how important Clara is. And the discard is fine. You can get that back with a Pel Pad, but the Lost Zone, goodbye forever.
Yes.
Clara's stuck there.
Yeah, so Brennan making that decision on that basis, and also going with a quick ball, discarding a Lost Vacuum to grab a second Comfey, and going to take the time to go through that first deck check, and then, yeah, content that there's nothing too vital in the prize cards, going to shuffle up and carry on.
Yeah, I think that Brennan's got a nice spread as prize cards. That Raihan can be really good for that Charizard, being able to get that energy down if it's in the discard already. You haven't got the Clara to get it. But I think overall, his prizes, nothing that's going to hold him back in this game. He's still going to be able to operate in the way that he wants to, which is always great.
Yes. And there goes with the second flower selecting. Sableye this time being what hits the Lost Zone. A Psychic Energy going to hand, it looks like, or was it another Comfey? No, it was a Psychic Energy. So going to attach that and then retreat and go for a third flower selecting. So off to a really good start turn 1.
Yeah, really good start. Brennan's dream here is to try and get 4 in the Lost Zone already, making that Kamerman active for his next turn, being able to perhaps take an early knockout on a Sobble or a Drizzle left laying around. So he wants a really explosive first turn, but only the 3 in there, but very easy for him to get that 4th in for his turn 2, for that Spit Innocently to be free. And now we go over to Francesco's side, and we see the usual start, Capacious Bucket.
Yes. Capacious Bucket going to grab, 2 water energies out of the deck and get Francesco off to a good start here. Of course, we want to see, like in the first game, we want to see a Palkia at the bench. We want to see a couple more Sobbles. We want to see a Greninja down. And I'm sure Francesco is looking through to make sure that he has all the access to resources to do that. And he'll see that, his prize cards are very workable once again.
Yeah, I think the cool thing with Capacious Bucket as well is that obviously oftentimes early game that Irida grabbing that Greninja, grabbing the Capacious Bucket now, with the Greninja you might want to draw into other things, VIP pass, get other Pokemon, and by Capacious Bucket in, taking 2 cards out of your deck already, you're thinning down, making your odds a little bit better if your hand isn't quite that good, and so it has multiple uses, and then of course we keep mentioning those water energy in the discard is exactly where you want them to be.
Yeah, yes, it exactly is. And speaking of which, there is the Irida being played by Francesco right now as well, so not even needing to use that to grab the Capacious Bucket, so maybe Francesco could use it to grab a Battle
And
VIP pass.
And there it is, the perfect card to see turn 1 as we continue to see that Greninja going to be able to use that concealed cards this turn as well, and the VIP pass going to grab Francesco, whatever he likes here. We imagine a Palkia V for an attacker at some point, and that Star Portal to bring that Greninja to life.
Yeah, the only slight fear is that Brennan does have a slightly more robust setup in this game than he did in Game 2. I would say that getting to 10 the Lost Zone is not outside the realms of possibility, so maybe Francesco could be slightly fearing a double Lost Mine this time. I don't think it's, I don't think it's guaranteed, but it's not unlikely.
Yeah, I think that Brennan will, definitely, I can almost certainly say that he'll be happier with his setup in this game, getting a few more things down, and of course he's going to want to see that Manaphy next turn, I'm sure, as well. 2 Palkia coming down off that VIP pass, making sure he's got an attacker on board, 1 maybe for Star Portal, 1 to attack, who knows, and then keep calling coming down to the board, 2 Sobble hitting the bench. Very, very similar setup to last game.
Yeah, so this way, even in worst case scenario where 2 Sobbles get KO'd, Francesco will still have at least 1 left of Vomito Drizzle, so that is pretty good indeed.
And that chorus a little bit ugly there. That Drapion, I imagine, is going to hit the discard, and the Cape, of course, those Sableye being one of the main attackers in the deck, and Manaphy. We've talked so many times about how important it is. We mentioned that he will probably want to see it this turn, and there it is. You can imagine that's going to hit the bench fairly soon. Yeah,
very important for Brennan to hit that. So, Drapion, like we mentioned, sometime, although potentially relevant because of the fact that the Sobbles are a Rapid Strike Pokemon, not something you want to be benching, so he can go in Lost Zone straight away. And I think the biggest problem for Brennan right now, looking at his hand, I don't see any switching cards really.
No switching cards, so that means 1 flower selecting this turn up to 5. So we saw really early on this flower selecting becomes so important to try and get switch out, and nothing. Radiant Zard is the pick, obviously the perfect garbage hitting the Lost Zone. That Zard is definitely better than a VIP pass at this point in the game. But yeah, as you said, Brennan's hand a bit chock-a-block here. Not going to be able to get any more than 6 in the Lost Zone, and that is not a number he wants. He needs that 10 to really be able to do anything effective in this matchup. Just going to have to stick with the Cramorant knockout for now.
Yeah, which is still absolutely fine, of course. It gets an early knockout. It gets that sort of prize race at first going in his favor. And unlike last time, the Manaphy is already down now, so there's no risk of a double knockout from a Radiant Greninja.
Yeah, Francesco will be probably happy that he hasn't sort of attached to that Greninja yet or started committing to it. He probably suspected, I've seen 2 Manaphy now in Brennan's deck. I know that it's probably not likely to come off again. I got a bit lucky the first time round and it really worked out for me. But he's going to be aware that it's probably not the right way to go all the time. But Star Portal, so many different uses. It can charge up anything on Francesco's side of the board. So it's not the only thing he can do. And now we see a really quick start to the turn. The Evo Incense for the Drizzile, and going to go back in for any other trainer that Francesco wants. And opting for the Melanie.
Okay, so maybe wanted to save the Star Portal for later. This way, of course, with the Melanie attachment, Francesco can attach from hand and get the attack going in the subspace swell without the need of Star Portal, which means that maybe a Greninja could come in later on.
Yeah, we mentioned before that subspace spell, 60 damage plus 20 for every bench Pokemon on the board. Obviously, this Palkia is going to be able to go through pretty much anything anything at any point on Brennan's side of the board, hitting that Charizard for weakness. So those 20 damage is not really relevant, as Lost Box loves a big bench, and so does Palkia.
Yes, it really does. And there is the other energy attachment from hand as well. So the subspace well now ready to go. Probably just going to take a very quick knockout on this Kamerman, I would imagine. But Francesco's going to make sure there isn't anything else he wants to do first. Oh, playing the scoop up net.
And I like this, especially if the Sobble doesn't come down again for now. I think maybe just leaving that Drizzile there, knowing that 9 damage counters are going to have to be spent on being able to KO that Drizzile, but still having access to Inteleon to get some more trainer cards later on in the game. I really like this. It means that he knows that Brennan has a decent chance of getting that Lost Mine off next turn, but preventing him from doing anything that spectacular with it.
Yeah, and of course, not only that, Francesco grabbing the Irida off of the Drizzile as well, the Shady Dealings, just to preempt the support of the next turn, making sure that he has access to that next turn when he will almost certainly need it. And yeah, like you said, not benching the Sobble again.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that just that one Irida grabbing a water Pokemon, probably going to be the Inteleon, but it might as well say grab 3 items, Irida itself grabbing 1 item, Inteleon being able to grab 2, and when you put it like that, really powerful card.
Yeah, really, really powerful card. So now back to Brennan as he is able to do a Chorus's experiment again, and it looks like this time actually opting to Lost Zone the second mana fee, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I think that now opting to Lost Zone the second mana fee, he knows that the Greninja is unlikely. He's going to probably hope that Francesco chooses to overlook it now, maybe only going for it in the late game. And of course, I'm just checking here to see if there is any sort of Ordinary Rod in the deck.
I don't believe I see it, no.
There is no Ordinary Rod, so of course if that mana fee does go down at any point, it's going to be tough for Brennan to get in, but now he's probably aware that it's going to have to be a boss's orders to get it, because you would imagine the Shady Dealings Inteleon is going to go on top of that Drizzile instead of the quick shooting one.
You have to think so, right? And flower selecting not number 10, but flower selecting now to get the 10th card in the Lost Zone. So with this, the Lost Mine will be active. I do believe that there is not a Psychic Energy in Brennan's hand, so actually this could be a little bit awkward because, well, without the Psychic Energy, obviously you can't use Disableized attack, so I'm not even sure he has a way to dig for it either. I see a Fire Energy, but not a Psychic Energy. Maybe Pokestop?
Pokestop. Not able to get energy, though. Only item cards off that. All of them are going to hand, though. That's as good as it gets off a Pokestop. Maybe not with that VIP pass, but good fodder for the quick balls that he drew as well. But Freya, you're looking at Brennan's hand. It's huge, but not any of the cards that he needs right now, and that's been sort of the tale of this game so far. Brennan's drawing through his deck. He's getting sort of what he wants, but never able to finish off the things that he needs.
No, and that's and we can see there the Psychic Energies right there at the bottom, where exactly where Brennan doesn't want them. So I imagine that, yeah, exactly like we see there, Brennan going to go for that Kamerman and just just attack with that again, and that's going to have to be the best option. But even though he really would prefer to Lost Mine this turn.
I actually think this is a really key turn in this game for those watching now. You can sort of look at the board state and where it's posed. If Sableye was now able to take out that Drizzile, there was a chance that Francesco didn't have what he needed in hand, meaning that that Inteleon play was taken away from that preempted Irida, not that useful anymore, meaning that Francesco would be forced to sort of play with what he had in hand, you know, playing a few less cards, maybe drawing some off Greninja, but a far less optimal turn than what he was expecting. But Brennan doesn't look like he's going to be able to optimize that, which means that Francesco can use that Inteleon, and he's already looking to be ahead in this game.
Yeah, and if you're Francesco, you've got to be smiling here because you're already taking a 1-game lead. It is very obvious that you have lead in this game as well. Brennan is not quite getting there with his setup in the way that he wants, and yeah, having to use the Fire Energy to retreat the Comfey and bring up the Kamerman and just spit innocently for 110. And you can see in the look on Brennan's face, he is not very happy.
Yeah, the body language here, not good. Obviously, that 110 on the Palkia, not even a 2-shot available if it was another Kamerman. Not even the 12 damage counters from Sableye are going to get through that with 280 HP. He's going to have to rely on Charizard at some point during this game to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Lost Mine was able to be reached, then Brennan could have put 90 on. In fact, a really perfect turn could have been potentially 90 on the Drizzile to KO it, and then 30 on the Palkia, because then that's exactly enough to leave it on 250 HP left to be KO'd with a Radiant Charizard later on.
Of course. And here we see that Irida played, opting to get that Inteleon, the Capacious Bucket, 2 more energy. Francesco really going back in again now, the Shady Dealings. As I said, that Irida might as well be saying 1 water, 3 items, 3 trainers. Francesco really cherry-picking everything he needs to try and win this game now. It looks like he's eyeing up that Clap Stadium. Even more awkward this point for Brennan. His board's already not looking too tidy. Now he's going to be restricted even further. That Pokestop, a card that can get him through his deck a little bit more, and you see his face, they're seeing Clap Stadium, he knows his board already not posed for a great time, and now he's going to be even more restricted.
Yeah, you've got to be feeling for Brennan here. Francesco is absolutely doing everything to capitalize on this lead that he has, not be completely relentless with his attack, and just now going to make it, like you said, even more restricted for Brennan with the Collapse Stadium, where this is really a deck that needs to go wide as much as possible to switch between all these come fades and have these attackers ready to go.
Yeah, I think another interesting thing we can see here is that you were talking just now about a perfect turn would be sniping, for example, the Drizzle, 3 damage counters on the Palkia. There's now a big charm in Francesco's hand. With that big charm on it, it means that 6 damage counters would have to be wasted on the Palkia to be able to one-hit it with the Charizard as well. So there is lots of ways Francesco can lock Brennan out of this game. And we do just see a swing with the Subquake spell, taking another knockout, and Francesco down to 4 prizes.
Yeah. There goes the Clara now, going to get back 1 Fire Energy at least and a Psychic Energy. I'm sure Brennan would have loved to see that last turn, but then going to also be able to pick back. Can get both the Kamerman, and I guess he may as well. There's nothing else in a discard pile. May as well get both back, though. Maybe not, actually.
Maybe only 1. Maybe he doesn't want it shuffled into his deck. Maybe with something like a Marnie again or something like that. Sometimes it's optimal to get a few things back, but not all of it. But 1 definitely available at some point in this game. It is able to knock out some of the smaller things on Francesco's side of the board if another Sobble or a Drizzle is available. And the Pelpad now shuffling that Clara back in, and another Chorus. Brennan preempting, giving himself the outs for the late game as well. But the main thing we see in this turn is that Psychic Energy finally being attached to that Sableye, meaning Lost in Mine is now available.
Yeah, so now at long last able to use one of the main attacks of the deck. It took a bit longer than wanted, but at least Brennan is able to do it now and will be able to start spreading some damage counters and maybe set up some knockouts for later on. I don't think it's completely, out of the question for Brennan to win. Obviously, this Lost Mine attack is extremely powerful, although it is more so the earlier you can do it. And I think that's been the biggest struggle for Brennan, is to get this Lost Zone box deck rolling quickly enough.
Yeah, we definitely have seen slow games here from Brennan. Definitely not what we're used to with this Lost Box deck. We've really seen it take dominant forces in some of its matchups, being able to take, as we say, those early prizes, Grinch itself into a blaring lead, and then of course as soon as your opponent catches up, it's Charizard time.
Yes, Radiant Charizard. I think we should talk about that card for a little bit, honestly, because to me what's most fascinating about it is that it may be the most playable Charizard card we've ever had legal.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yeah.
I think it just might be. And of course I think one of the other really important things to note about it is that it gets better the further into the game you get.
Yes.
And that amount of damage that late in the game, for such little resources. We were talking at the start of the game about some of these decks not having enough resources to get all the way through the game and take multiple knockouts, especially in 1 prize matchups. However, this Charizard literally just needing to be dropped, attach 1 energy at some point in the late game. That's all you need to be able to do 250 damage, a choice band 280. It's an incredible, incredible card. About
as efficient as it gets in terms of like energy to damage ratio. Absolutely insane attacker, and it's basically it's the center point of what makes decks like this work. We also saw it, of course, at the World Championships being played in these sort of like Inteleon box variants where it was the finisher there, and in these decks it really, because you think, hold on, it's a one-of attacker, right? Surely you can't just like base your deck around this, but you don't base your deck around it, and it fills in a clutch gap in these sort of archetypes to make them work.
Definitely, and then at the end of Brennan's turn, we see that Lost Mine finally come down. 60 damage to the active Palkia, and some spread between the Palkia on the back and the Greninja on the back as well. But now it comes over to Francesco. He's just going to continue to look to put the pressure on. There are now 3 Palkia V-Stars on board. Not something you see all that often. It's usually just the 2, but all 3 posed and ready to attack. He just needs to continue to output this pressure and continue to pull ahead, because as we keep saying, Brennan has the opportunity to pull this back. Yes,
Brennan absolutely does have the opportunity to pull this back, but Francesco is, of course, going to make it as difficult as possible for him to do so. Brennan is trying to make sure to spread the damage in the right way to make sure that those clean-up knockouts at the end can happen. There goes the cross-switcher, though, from Francesco. We're going to bring up that Manaphy and then bring up the Palkia as well. Probably going to be going for a knockout here and maybe Francesco is thinking here, now that the second Manavy's hit the lost zone, we've seen some Claras being used. This is the chance for me to take this out and enable myself to finish up the game with Radiant Greninja.
An absolutely incredible play all around here. The escape rope, the cross switches, sorry, bringing up the Manaphy, but also that collapsed stadium coming down. We've already talked about so many times in this game. One of the Manaphys in the lost zone already, that Clara being played. It means that Brennan's going to have to Clara the Manaphy back out, but then he has to put it down on his board. And at the minute, that means no room for Radiant Zard.
You're absolutely right. What an astonishing play from Francesco there. Just really thinking through every single avenue that Brennan could have to claim this game back and saying, nope, this is not happening.
Not happening. He's definitely posing himself, obviously, in a position again to possibly take that 2-prize turn. He knows how important that is for him being able to win this game, and at the minute he is flying. His deck is giving him all the answers. It is blue everything at the minute. Water is taking over. The tide is coming in, and can Brennan stay above water?
A golden tide, you might say. And now from Brennan's side, he is stuck between a rock and a hard place now, because he knows he needs to get this Manaphy back down, but exactly like you said, if he does, his bench is full because Collapse Stadium only allows for 4, so he can't put down the vital Radiant Charizard that he needs to finish out the game.
It's a great lock here. Absolutely, really, really fantastic by Francesco. Playing down that Collapse Stadium's been in his hand for a while now as well. He grabbed it with a big charm a couple of turns ago with that Inteleon, but he's been waiting and posed to play it at the right time and really lock this thing up. Brennan really struggling now to figure out what's most important to put down. Not too much on board either. He needs another attacker. Sableye not going to be able to do too much this turn again, placing that 12. Yeah. But overall, it's going to be setting himself up for a late game that might not even come. Yeah.
What Brennan basically is forced into doing now is switching into the Sableye and using Lost Mine, putting all 120 damage on the Radiant Greninja to knock it out. That has to be the move this turn. If he doesn't, that's the game's basically over. This is the only real viable move that Brennan can make if he wants to stay in this.
That's great, and I also think that falls into Francesco's hands as well. They're not damaging the Palkias. Those Palkias still around. Obviously 5 prizes left to take. It means he still has to get through 2 Palkia before closing out this game. So the Greninja, yes, going down, taking away that 2-prize turn, but Francesco still 2 Palkias then able to probably attack 2 more times, 3 more times for those prizes to win.
Yeah, and now Brennan decided to get back the second crown round from the Clara. Of course, mainly using it to get back the Manaphy, but sort of as a whilst you has it kind of thing. Does have the Lost Vacuum, so that is, of course, also vital to sort of counteract this play that Francesco's just made. It means that now Brennan will be able to put the Radiant Charizard down, as we see. Yeah, indeed, I don't think that Lost Vacuum should be going to the Lost Zone. I don't. It's the Lost Vacuum itself doesn't get Lost Zone. Only
only the card you discard with it.
Yeah, but make sure to get the judges on that.
At least we know that it's not ready. He's already over 10, so not too much. Oh, there we go. It's
anyway,
yes. Not too much of a worry right now. It doesn't really change too many of the game mechanics. But the Echoing Horn now, was that the discard or was something brought out? Oh, yeah, a second Sobble there brought out. The Sableye here being able to go for 2 Sobble knockouts, jumping Brennan from 5 to 3 prizes, which means our players will be all tied up.
Okay, and now all of a sudden, Brennan has taken all of Francesco's answers and given back, or taken all of Francesco's questions and given all of the answers, because now there's going to be a double knockout in the Sableye. The Manaphy is down to prevent more Greninja shenanigans, and there's the Collapse Stadium's gone as well. So actually Brennan has answered Francesco's questions perfectly here.
Yes, of course. Francesco threw the punches, but Brennan was able to dodge them all, showing him that he can, in fact, swim. Not only that, he's Michael Phelps, who was able to do it all, completely staying above water and keeping himself in this game, and if anything, establish himself for the first time in this best of 3 and giving himself a good position.
Yes, and Francesco now is going to have to answer some questions of his own as he starts off with a quick ball to look through his deck and see what's left. But his original planning has been foiled, right? Because he was thinking, okay, I'm pretty safe now. This second Manaphy is gone. There's very unlikely that Brennan could get it back. I put down this Collapse Stadium, but Brennan had an answer for all of it. So now Francesco's thinking, oh, well, now what do I do here? Because I still have 3 more prizes left to take, and I'm fairly sure that Brennan can take his 3 prizes before I can.
Yeah, I think the important thing to note as well is obviously you've been in some of these big games where, of course, you've put so much into a plan and you've put all the thinking into that and you've not really thought about the outcome of what happens if that gets countered. Francesco finds himself in that position now. He opts to boss that Manaphy and do it again, just hoping that Brennan doesn't have the answers for a 3rd time now to get a Manaphy down.
And I think that's a very, very fair play. It does mean that now Brennan, again, is kind of forced into using Lost Mine to KO the Greninja. Otherwise, the game ends next turn, and I'm sure that is what Brennan will do. But it's kind of good for Francesco to force Brennan into that line now by carrying the Manaphy again.
Of course, it does mean that this game will most probably end up coming down to, can Brennan find the choice band for Charizard?
Yes, and of course, if that's the case, then a one-hit knockout on the Palkia can happen. But if not, then there won't be quite enough damage because the Lost Mine needs to be focused on the Greninja, so you can't afford to put an extra 30 on the Palkia to soften it up so that even a Radiant Charizard without a choice belt can KO it.
Exactly that. So it's going to be interesting now to see if Brennan chooses to take that line you mentioned. Obviously, that knockout on the Greninja going to become ever so important this turn. Otherwise, he could find himself in a sticky situation. That Charizard already coming down to the board, ready to spread its wings and fly to end this game. Yeah. The switch card coming out, and I'm sure we'll see Sableye make its way into the active here.
I mean, not just an awkward situation. If Brennan does not KO that Radiant Greninja, like, Brennan will lose the game. There are two less than 90 HP Pokemon on the field ready to be knocked out by Greninja, and that Greninja is fully loaded.
Into the active and not the Sableye at the minute. Brennan opting to go for a different line of play. The Zigzagoon not going to be enough to get through the Palkia on its own, Wizard, but that Roxanne hoping he can hit a choice band on the other side, I'm sure.
Yeah, playing the Zigzagoon down, just of course thin a card out of the hand to make it the most likely possible to draw this choice belt off of the Roxanne. If you can find it, then obviously it'd be in a pretty good way. But then hold on, doesn't Francesco just come in with the Radiant Greninja and win anyway?
Yes, I'm really struggling to figure out here what Brennan's line of play is. He's 8-2. He's probably thinking he has an answer somewhere here. A bigger brain than myself or yours, maybe, who knows. But Francesco here drawing his two cards. Brennan really hoping for that ban for any sort of result this turn.
But no.
And he misses so far. That Pokestop, one more chance to be able to dig 3 cards. He's got an extra chance to try and get it.
And that's it.
It's just the boss's orders for the game. He knows that Greninja is going to be able to close it. And it is a 2-0 for Francesco. Not been many 2-0s this weekend.
No,
we are finally blessed with one. And Francesco, 2 really dominant performances there. Maybe more due to Brennan not hitting the things he needed at the right time, but definitely a deserved win. Yeah,
huge congratulations to Francesco. Played absolutely masterfully, and committee races to Brennan as well. Tried to do his best to counteract Francesco's plays, but in the end, just not quite enough, unfortunately.
Not quite enough, and as I said, the tide came in, and Palkia was really, really strong there, and just being able to do the things it does best. Consistency is king. We continue to say it this weekend. Those Inteleons grabbing you the things you want. That Irida grabbing you the things you want. The Greninja drawing you extra cards. It has all the right things to make the best deck in format. Will it do well for the rest of the day is the question.
That is the question, and I'm sure we're going to find out the answer to that as we go through. But yeah, what an incredible game there we just witnessed. Like you just said, one of the first 2-0s we've seen, which is quite interesting to note. So many of the games this weekend, they have gone to that, so many of the matches have gone through to that third game. So looking back at that, if you were in, Brennan's shoes there, do you think there's anything that you could have done differently to approach that?
The thing is that I think the first game, it was a bit of an unlucky situation. I think
that
if Manaphy was down on the field, that first game could have gone very differently. Obviously, we didn't get to see it play out very far anyway, due to the fact that it was sort of taken out of his hands quite early. I think maybe if the Manaphy was down a bit earlier in that game, you have to look at Francesco's side of the board and consider some of the things. Star Portal used very early. His board wasn't all that great. It had some of the key things, but obviously Star Portal utilizing the Greninja, he would have had to maybe dig through his deck a lot to find some of the answers further on in the game. So it's interesting to see how that would have played out, maybe just by a Manaphy being on the field. But I think in that game too, there were a lot of questions being asked, and I think it's our favorite phrase of this weekend. But I think that Francesco really putting on the pressure. That Palkia come out so early and was just taking the prizes away. And although we talked about how important the 2-prize turn is, there were a couple of turns where Brennan missed, which made those turns 2-prize turns. We talked about buying yourself time. Francesco bought himself all the time in the world, was taking knockout after knockout, and Brennan just did not have the answers.
No, he didn't. Although, speaking of answers, I'm sure Francesco will have some answers for our questions in a little bit. We're going to cut to a very quick break and get Francesco up here for a winner's interview, so don't go away. Hello everyone, welcome back. I am here with our feature match winner, Francesco. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you so much, thank you.
So, take us through your thought process during those few games. Obviously, it was a 2-0 victory. But it was very much back and forth with some spots. We saw you make a lot of plays that Brennan was able to counter, sort of when they were back and forth with the Radiant Greninja and the Manaphy's and the Concert Claras. Why don't you talk us through your experience of the game?
So I tested this matchup a lot with my friends, and I realized that you have to be aggressive. If you start well like me, like Sobo, keep calling stuff like this, you can try to fill your bench when the opponent doesn't have a lot of cards in the last turn in turn one. So I started to. The first game, of course, was really easy to get the knockout on the two Pokémons, and that put me a lot in advantage. And the second game, they missed sometimes, and it was good for me because Marnie, of course, helped. Big Charm helps, and also the Collapse Stadium. So it was the process. If they can't Clara, they Roxanne, but I'm fine with it because my Greninja is fine, and also my Palkias. But if they Roxanne, I got my Greninjas in the back, and I can finish the game as I did in the last round, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Were you a little bit surprised towards the end of that game where Brennan ended up not targeting down your Radiant Greninja? Because it seemed like that was basically, if that Radiant Greninja didn't get KO'd, then yeah, you'd be able to come with it and finish the game. So
yeah, I was surprised by that because I expected the Lost Vacuum on the Big Charm to get the knockout, but maybe it was not worth it because then they wouldn't have the knockout on Palkia, so I was in an advantage anyway.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so you say you tested this matchup a lot. So you were expecting this to be one of the sort of biggest matchups for you going into this tournament, you say?
Yeah, and no, I didn't expect this a lot, but I was ready for it because I'm playing 4 Palkias instead of the 3s that all of the people play. I'm playing Collapse Stadium, Big Charm, that they can help a lot. I wish I got a second Crobat probably to fill the bench and get the Collapse Stadium working. But for now, it has worked.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
fine.
It's also, I'll go back to something you said earlier when you were talking about how if you can go aggressive in the early game, if they don't have that many cards in the lost zone, then you can sort of get away with putting down more Sobbles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's if there's a situation where, there's more cards in the lost zone than there would be usually, do you then change your game plan a little bit?
Of course, I go on with my full bench of Palkias. And because they can target as soon as possible the Sobbles, so it's useless to bench them. And then the strategy of the 2 Crobats that I don't have in my list could work out better. Yeah. But it worked out for me, so all fine.
Well, that's awesome. So then I'll ask one last question then before we head off to a break. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to at home? Anyone like to say hello to or anything like that?
I would like to say hello to my team Caputoro gang and all my testing group. So Gianmarco Morle this year. And Riccardo Maganza that he didn't make day 2 with my list.
That's a shame.
That's all.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Once again, congratulations.
And
to everyone watching at home, we hope you enjoyed that feature match. Don't go away. We're going to cut to a short break now, and we'll be back with more Pokemon action very, very soon.
Thank you.